Noob School. Back here, I believe this is podcast 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Returning guest number 4.
Yeah, so this will be your 4th podcast. My son Jack Sterling, and that puts you at number 1, sir.
All-time most frequent guest?
I think Mr. Michael Pace is number 2, or maybe Marty.
Is this the first show back from overseas?
Yeah.
So I'm back first on the list when we get back overseas.
That's
that feels pretty special. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. I hope I don't, my accent hasn't changed at all.
Hopefully all of our preparation and hard work getting ready for this show is going to pay off.
Yeah, unfortunately, all these notes, none of them are about you.
That's just a blank piece of paper.
Yeah, so it's just, we're going to have to just, maybe talk about what we already know.
We're going to fall back on our existing rapport, I think.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, podcast number, Chris, 150.
156, I believe.
156. Wow, podcast 156. I don't think Rogan has that many.
I think he does.
Does he?
A lot more.
Okay.
Probably in the thousands at this
It's
point.
just
I've been doing it for a while.
Well, that's a good point. If you think about, Rogan now, we look at him and he's so successful. He certainly wasn't when he was at 156. No one even knew he was doing a podcast.
No, I mean, I think he had a pretty good, because he was the ring announcer for UFC, because he'd done the Fear Factor thing.
Yeah.
He had a brand. People knew who he was.
Yeah.
And so he might not have been, I think he was making more money at 156 than you are on your podcast.
I think you're right about that. But, as I recall, they were in like his garage or something.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it was definitely more grungy than it is now.
Nobody was paying him $100 million for a podcast.
Just to talk about ancient
Dinosaurs.
aliens and, peyote.
Well, I kind of like that.
I love it. I'm not saying anything negative about
It's
it.
just too much to listen to sometimes. 4 hours a day or
It's
3
a
hours
lot.
a day?
It's a lot. It lends itself to clips.
Yeah, clips are good.
You know?
Yeah, I watch him sometimes just to learn, and one of the things I like about it is he's like him a lot in every opinion, but he's just so relaxed about the whole damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's genuine.
Yeah.
And people like that versus, hello, this is John here with you. They don't want that.
True.
What's your favorite podcast?
Well, I'd say there's really 2 categories of podcasts that I listen to primarily. There's a military history podcast called Lions Led by Donkeys. The podcast host
Lions what?
Led by Donkeys,
Okay.
So-
All right. That would be bad military leadership.
basically.
Okay.
So it's taking stuff. Sometimes it's little, things that happen in military history you might not have heard about,
Yeah.
or it's things you definitely heard about, but not from the perspective that they're telling it from, which is
Right.
typically the lived experience of the people fighting the fight. Right? We read in history books, we invaded here and this happened, kind of the big picture strategic
Right.
piece perspective. This is much more, the Joe on the ground in the trench who's got dysentery and body lice and is trying to just survive the day, right? It's funny. It's kind of a dark humor. They kind of talk about this stuff, like, for example, they cover Napoleon's march into Russia. Just disaster, right? They went in with 500,000. They weren't really even trying to start a fight. They were just trying to stunt on this young Russian prince or czar. Didn't go that way. They ended up getting into a fight in the middle of the Russian winter, and about 9/10 of them died. The ones that came back straggled back into Eastern Europe looking like a literal army of zombies, right?
This is Poland
This is-
going into Russia.
This is Napoleon.
Oh, Napoleon.
So his grand army was all nations that he had subjugated. It was all these different. They didn't speak the same language. They didn't have a common uniform. They had no plan. A lot of them didn't have shoes. They just walked in, got completely wrecked. And I think that's where the modern conception of zombies comes from.
Zombies.
Is these
They
people
look
coming?
like it. Look like
They were
zombies.
taking bites out of each other because they were starving to death, and they were all freezing and covered in frostbite. So if I bite your shoulder, you're not even going to notice. So this is what emerged back out of Russia and Eastern Europe, and they're like, well, zombies. So that's one podcast. It's Lions Led by Donkeys.
Hold on, let's talk about something. What is the which episode do you think that you like the best?
Well, then Napoleon's grand army marching into Russia was one of the ones that I found most just fascinating because of the fact that they weren't trying to start a fight. They were the most powerful force on the planet, but they didn't plan to go fight, so they were not ready. They had ancient cannons.
What were they going there for?
Napoleon and the Tsar Nicholas, I want to say, were kind of buddies.
Yeah.
And then once he became the Tsar, he kind of got a little bit like, I got to be, true to my own countrymen. I can't be doing whatever you want, Napoleon. And Napoleon's like, I don't really like that. I don't like other people having influence over you. So I'm going to march this big ass army that I hastily assembled,
Right.
Napoleon's Grand Army, march it into your backyard just to kind of do a drive-by, right? Show of force. I'm not going to shoot. We're just going to come through and show you how big and
Just
powerful
show
we
of
are.
force.
So you'll remember
Yeah.
that we're good friends and you want to listen to me when I talk.
Yeah.
Tsar Nicholas didn't take kindly to that.
He slaughtered him.
Well, they just fought a scorched earth campaign.
Yeah.
They didn't stand and fight the army. They would just kind of hit and move and let the elements do their thing. And so by the time winter came, the guys with no shoes, everyone's uniforms disintegrated, shoes were gone, all the horses were gone and eaten, the cannons were all broken. Everyone was disease-ridden. Everyone had, a frozen diarrhea sickle coming out of their backside. Like, it was one of the most hellacious lived experiences you can imagine. And I think with a lot of times history, we think about the numbers and the kind of geopolitics of it, but 500,000 people marching into the Russian winter and then just getting chewed up like hamburger meat and then coming back. And
The Lions Led by Donkeys. That's a podcast on Spotify.
iTunes.
iTunes.
Yeah. iTunes podcast or Apple podcast or whatever it is.
Okay.
That's where I get it.
What's the other one?
So the other one, I put a bucket because there's a few different content creators that I follow in this space, but fantasy football is my number one hobby, obsession, combination of data analytics and beating my friends at stuff. It's kind of like what makes me stay on that stuff. But the various content creators that use a data-driven analytical approach to understand the game of football, which is a small sample size, high variance environment. It's really was kind of my first like gateway drug into like math and why you would be interested in analyzing numbers and data, right? So I grew up telling myself the story that I didn't really like math. I wasn't very good at it, like history and reading and writing. And so it wasn't really until kind of preparing for business school and then just consuming a bunch of fantasy, because I sucked at fantasy football when I started. I was getting beat constantly, having to do the loser's punishment and stuff. So I was like, how do I not suck so much at this? Looking for something in that lens of data in a field that's really driven by a lot of kind of like archaic thought, kind of the old school football mentality. We're just going to grind it out and
How big is
keep
his
hitting them. And,
thumb?
like, oh, he looks real good, looks real smooth. It's
Yeah.
very subjective
And then he had
analysis.
for length of arms for the
Yeah,
offensive
and
lineman.
there's something there, some signal, but not to the extent that it's made out to be. But yeah, the data analytics, ended up going to Clemson for data analytics masters, and so it really kind of was my gateway drug to looking at anything, football or otherwise, through the lens of data and what can the data tell us, right? So those are really the two that I spend. If I'm listening to a podcast, just one of those two types.
And Noob School, of course.
Noob School, of course. But that's more of a YouTube thing.
That's true.
You do have a podcast, but
Yeah. You just get the clips.
just clips.
Yeah. That's a good way to do it because we don't have enough time to watch all the good podcasts. There's so many good ones.
And that's what I listening to me, even on Sunday on game day, for the most part, I'm putting on Red Zone and I put my headphones in and I'm not watching the game. I'm just listening to Chris Hansen, or it's Scott Hansen, Red Zone. Chris Hansen's the catcher predator guy. Scott Hansen.
You're watching two things.
Yeah, two separate
They're
shows.
both
Two
good.
Hansens, very different tenor to those shows. But yeah, he's talking, just covering all the games all the time, no commercials
The great thing about watching
need to
the
see
Chris Hansen, the catcher predator, is we know what's going to happen.
every time.
They're going to catch the guy.
Oh God, yeah.
So
I'd much rather do Scott Hansen's job.
yeah, true. Well, that's cool. What do I think that my first million is a great business one I listen to.
That Guy Raz. That's how I built this.
No, that's how I built it. I like that too. I don't listen to it much because it doesn't like show up on my stuff, so I don't go find it. But my first million's two guys that both became successful entrepreneurs, and not crazy successful like in the newsletter business and nothing bizarrely crazy, but just successful at a relatively young age. And they said, we're going to do a podcast called My First Million, just about how people got to that first base of being wealthy. My first business, how it did well, and everyone, they tell these just remarkable stories. You're like, wow, how did he do? Because like you said about head tracks, a lot of people think, well, first I got to do this, and then I can do this. And
Right.
these people are like, no, you can just do it this way.
You just do it. Yeah.
So I like that one. And then What's the one with the four guys from Silicon Valley? It's not My First Million. The All In podcast.
All In, okay,
All
yeah.
In. I enjoy
I
that.
listened to that a few times too.
Yeah, it's not all. It's certainly not all groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
At least 1 to 2 of them, and the other 2 are giving you both perspectives on things, whichever way you believe, and they're just smart. I mean, they're the kind of people who've made hundreds of millions of dollars or more, and getting their perspective on what they think about doing things certain ways is, I think, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
One guy said something interesting. Chamath is his name.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first, really the first sales manager at Facebook.
Okay.
That would be a good job.
Yeah.
But he happens to be really smart, and he's the one who helped figure out how to monetize the millions of users they'd gotten.
Mm-hmm.
How do we monetize this into all the different ways they sell ads and things like that? And so, one thing leads to another, and they go public, and his stock's worth, $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the age was, but, relatively young age, probably mid to late 30s, he got out.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't need any more money. And this is, imagine how hard you're working if you're the head of sales for Facebook.
Yeah.
And so he got out, and someone asked him, if you just would have stayed or not sold your stock, that would be like $50 billion.
Yeah.
He goes, do you regret that? And he goes, not a bit.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting reason for people, if you're thinking about your life, he's like, it's worth not having all that money to have all that freedom I've had.
Yeah.
To be my own man, to invest my money where I want to start my own businesses and not be straddled as a employee.
Right.
And that's a lot of money to leave on the table. But of course, at the point he made the decision, you don't know if that billion's going down to nothing
That's
either.
right. Yeah. I mean, and functionally, I understand if you're spending billionaire money, but like for me and you, functionally, what's the difference between $1 and $50 billion?
None.
Not really.
No.
I mean, some,
it's
obviously.
probably more trouble.
Probably more trouble.
Yeah.
You can get into more trouble. You can take a bigger bite and get way out over your skis. Where
Somebody told me, not told me, but I've read about this. This guy has been exposed to lots and lots of super rich people. He says in his experimentation or his study, 250 million is the Mendoza line. He goes, under that, people are kind of under the radar. They're happy as clams, of course, and they got latitude to do whatever they want. And once you start pushing north and you're half a bill, those people are just miserable.
No.
It's just, you're like, the Gulf Stream's not working again.
Yeah.
We got to use the other Gulf Stream,
Yeah.
the old one. And that, you start to get that kind of attitude.
Well, so-and-so got a 260-foot yacht. Mine's only 240 feet.
Right, trade it in.
I only have one helicopter pad.
Right.
Like,
And also you're so rich, everyone wants that money, that you kind of become in this bubble of people who just praise you like you're the king.
yeah.
And so you can't be normal anymore.
We had freshman year at Rhodes. We had actually sophomore year, so he was a freshman. Freshman coming in, and the incoming class was a Rockefeller. And it was like he couldn't be friends with anybody because everybody knew that based on his last name that he was, a billionaire. And we were trying to recruit him into our fraternity, right? And I was tasked with recruiting this guy particularly. And it was like, I'm going to give him kind of the slow play, like I don't really care, like whatever, you're Rockefeller, what a big deal. And I was just like, hey man, what are you up to this weekend? Like we're doing a little off-campus party thing. You want to come over? We're going to get a keg and stuff. It'd be fun. He goes, yeah, that sounds fun. Beer pong, bag toss, all that stuff. So I can't. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to Texas to drive my family's Formula One car. I'm like, cool. We're just different planes of existence,
Whatever.
Like, yeah. So it didn't bother me in the least.
Like you said, though, it puts him in a place where he can't be like one of the dudes.
You got to be someone like him to be on his level, to not think this person's only here for my money, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever they're asking for, whatever their angle is. You got to think, just it's like a very big imbalance between lifestyles.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, so when we get to 250 million, just stop it right there.
You won't know about it. I'll just disappear off the face of the earth.
No, we gotta hang.
No, we and you will still hang. I'm saying the general people, the we out there.
Right.
that's I think,
And help others
but in like
quietly.
anonymity, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Don't need to heap praise or focus. I just help people quietly, right?
Well, speaking of helping, let's talk about. We got a few things to talk about, but let's talk about what you do with the Veteran Center here in town, the Rupert Murdoch.
Rupert Hughes
Rupert Hughes.
Veteran Center, RHVC, aka the Roop.
The Roop's on fire.
Not on fire. It is
So Rupert Hughes Veteran Center here in Greenville,
home of Upstate Warrior Solution.
Upstate Warrior Solutions.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's just paint the picture for a second. So here I am, happily self-employed 3.5 years ago, doing my business with Hound, trying to sell cyber and fiber. Charlie Hall, president of Upstate Warrior Solution, Marine. I think he's a lieutenant colonel now, but in the reserves. I'd met Charlie, great guy. I knew of Upstate Warriors, but I didn't really have any connection to them beyond that. And so he kind of just called me out of the blue one day and was like, we're moving into this new building in a few months. We got this capacity that to add an entrepreneur program. We have employment covered. Upstate Warriors mantra is duplicate nothing and partner with everybody, right? So we want to start adding entrepreneurship to our line card. We can help people who are entrepreneurial, not just looking for a job. And so wasn't looking for it, wasn't thinking about doing something like that, never crossed my mind. But once the opportunity popped up, it really kind of formed a yin to my existing yang. So I have this self-employment, no team, no office, unlimited ability to make commissions, but also zero benefits or, don't do anything, I'm not making money. So it was missing that team element was the biggest part. I am solopreneur, grew up playing on team sports, joined the Navy because I missed being on a team, wanted to be on the SEAL teams. And so that missing team aspect was a big, the trade-off was I got to be with my kids every day and do the family stuff first and foremost. And so adding that Upstate Warriors to the equation pulled me away from that a little bit, pulled me away from my Hound work a significant amount. But I said, hey, I've never been in an entrepreneur program. I've never started one, let alone never run one. But I think that's in keeping with the entrepreneurial spirit, right? We're going to do stuff that we've never done before and just do it anyway. So we agreed to those terms. And so now I do that part-time. It ends up being a little more than part-time just because of the nature of having the team and the demands there. But yeah, anybody, so we serve the 7 counties of the upstate.
7 counties.
7 counties. We serve veterans in the military, law enforcement, firefighter, first responder, EMT, EMS, all that jazz.
Any veterans in the military or first responders.
And their families.
Right,
so they get the spouse of a veteran, son of a veteran, et cetera. They can come to us and we serve the whole person in one place, right? So you can come to us at everything from healthcare, housing, education, employment, entrepreneurship.
Meaning you have people that will help them figure all that
Correct.
out.
We're not going to be your doctor. We'll help you navigate the healthcare system. We're not going to be your teacher. We're going to help you navigate the education system, right? Okay. So for me, I'm not the world's greatest entrepreneur. I don't pretend to be. I've got the experience that I have working for myself, but I've never hired or fired somebody or, really managed a payroll or have a brick and mortar or anything like that. So there's plenty of stuff in business that I have not done yet. Mm-hmm. More of a sounding board, accountability partner, ally, advocate, and someone to go to bat for you. Mm-hmm. And that's really not to my own horn, but that is impactful, right? When you come from the military, if you're on this high team, high accountability, high structure environment, and you leave, whether you retire, whether you get out at 9 years or 4 years or whatever, you're leaving that. And I was fully aware of what I was getting out of, and knowing I was going into the woods alone without a map, right? And you get to your destination, and you're there, and you're just like, I feel like I can't do anything, right? Because I'm used to having this high capacity to do stuff because I got this big support structure underneath me.
Yeah.
But now I'm just a dude and I don't have any support structure, right? I mean, maybe I do, but not from a professional standpoint, not like the military provides, right? I use the analogy of Lance Armstrong, right? The dude could get on a bike and pedal, could not build a bicycle to save his life, right? So you kind of get out, you have to be the navigator, the bike builder, the engineer, the nutritionist, you have to do all the stuff. Yeah. You don't know where to start. You don't even know.
That's why, when we look at the psychological profiling we do on people, the Colby test, generally speaking, the most of the successful entrepreneurs have a very balanced profile. And you have a very balanced profile.
Yeah. I'm not extreme in any one category.
It just means that you can handle selling, marketing. You're okay with doing numbers, you know. And there's some people like me, you know, it's just like mostly selling, you know,
Yeah.
not so good on the numbers. And
Yeah, kind of the extreme subject matter expert versus kind of the generalist, jack of all trades. That's a good point. If you do have someone that's really deep into one area, they probably need a good partner, right? Someone that
partner,
complements
could use
them.
a partner, or in some cases, might not be a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to a guy or a young man a couple days ago, and he wants to do his own thing. And I said, well, you need to take this test. And we did the test, and he's got, on a scale of 1 to 10, almost no propensity to be a risk taker. So he's like, I want to be a risk taker. So, okay, well, you know, something, write the check. How am I going to, is it at risk?
Yeah. No, and that self-knowledge is huge. And I think that's, you know, one of the things that I think I help people with when we sit down to talk is like they're in their own bubble now, right? They get out and there's no one telling them yes, no, good, bad, anything. They're just like, they don't know what,
Yeah.
have no feedback, right? They're not getting any pushback or friction on anything they're doing.
Right.
It's just like, I'm just doing stuff in a vacuum. And so when they say stuff to me, I'm not going to ever be the dream killer. I don't pretend to be the Shark Tank that says, hey, this is a great idea, invest or no. So it's more just be a sounding board and reflect back what they're saying to me. It's like, make sure I'm hearing this right. You're going to do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, when you say it like that, maybe that's not the best idea. I'm not going to quit my job 3 months before retirement and start a self-practice, you know.
You're gonna come up with $350,000.
Yeah, you need $1 million for the mixed martial arts dojo. Like, great. But let's talk
We're gonna
about.
build a studio. We're gonna.
And sometimes you get really good ideas that come through too, and someone's actually done a lot of the work. And I think that's, you know, we're not in the business of picking winners and losers. We're there to help everybody on their journey, right? So if the guy needs to make money right now to pay his bills next month, we're going to help that guy, right? He probably needs a job first and foremost.
Well,
You know, if you're trying to start a business because you got to make the bills paid this week. It's like, that's not time to do it.
It's got to be fun though, because you and I both like talking about ideas. But when I, you know, was finally ready to go to work, and I thought I would start, you know, have an entrepreneurial idea. So knowing nothing at like age 23, knowing zero and having no experience, I said, well, I'm gonna start 2 businesses because I can't decide which one's going to be better. They're both so good.
Yeah. I hear that one a lot. I hear people that are like, here's my business. And okay, cool. And the next thing I'm going to do, the other thing I'm doing, like, okay, I like a lot of analogies. Right. To me, analogies have always helped make sense. And so the analogy that I use in that case is, you ever try to start a fire with a magnifying glass? You know how hard it is?
It must be
Very difficult, right? You got to get the sun just right. You got to hold it just right. The conditions have to be dry. You got to be consistent and keep that thing precisely on the same spot. Otherwise, it's not going to light. Well, what they're trying to start 2 fires at the same time with a magnifying glass, just jumping back and forth, and nothing. You might get 2 warm spots.
over here, no,
right?
over here, no, over here.
You're warming up 2 spots, but nothing's ever going to ignite, right? And you really, if you want to have something, you got to get that thing ignited, burning, and stable. It's not going to go out in you know, a minute or 2 before you take a little bit of those coals out and start something else, right? Because it's very difficult to start something that doesn't exist. It's even,
I think, you know, when I study Richard Branson, he's the model that I use. Is he's the starter, man. He loves to start it. So he has enough money where he can like try something, and if it works at all, he can just leave someone behind, an ops person, to deal with it, you know, and try to grow it. He says, I'm on to the next thing.
But when he started, he probably wasn't doing that. He was like, this is the one thing.
He knew everything.
The one thing has to be everything.
One thing. He knew everything. And as soon as it's ready, either you close it down or you put someone in charge and you move on.
That's got to be a pretty interesting point when you have that one singular vision for however many years it takes to get it to reality. And then one day you're like, man, I don't even need to be in the driver's seat anymore, right? Probably better for me not to be in the driver's seat. And I can expand my scope and look at other stuff. And really at that point, almost isn't entrepreneurship anymore, right? It's like you're kind of like your investor yourself, your self-backer kind of thing.
Right. You move into the owner's box, and it's just then someone's got to have the team meeting every day and look at the numbers and make sure you collect the money and all those ops kind of things. And entrepreneur doesn't like all that stuff.
No, I'm keenly aware of that. As soon as it has a sniff of kind of corporatism, like we got to put a little bit of corporate governance structure on this thing, I'm like, best of luck. I'm gonna move on to the next thing.
So I must say I was joking about Rupert Murdoch, but Rupert Hughes, we've had Charlie on the podcast, and he's just done a remarkable job. I mean, imagine, because he's dealing with mostly nonprofit organizations that are
And the
trying
government.
and the government. Imagine getting them all to agree
It's
to
incredible.
move under one roof.
Watching him from an arm's distance with the amount of people that he knows, the amount of organizational entities, acronyms, initiatives that he's tracking. He goes up to Washington every so often to kind of lobby for veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the most masterful networkers I've ever been around. You know, the number of people that he connects with, and the repository of information he has on everybody, just on top of his head.
Yeah.
Seemingly at will. I'm sure he does more work behind the scenes to make that true, but he's also super humble. I mean, he doesn't have an office in the room. He's got a cubicle just behind mine, right? Because he's never at his desk. He's always out doing stuff and meeting people. And he's also, I've never heard him describe himself as the president or the founder of Upstate Warrior Solutions. He's always told people I'm a coworker. I work with Jack.
Work with Jack.
I tell people he's one of our interns. It's funny, but
Poor guy.
he's just I mean, I wouldn't do it if he didn't think it was funny. But he's just very humble, and he's not better than anybody. He doesn't present himself.
Well,
over
probably an ideal Army officer. Didn't he go to West Point?
Marine Corps. No,
He didn't. Or did he
Annapolis.
switch? He went to Annapolis. Okay. Well, either one, I'm sure. But just that thing about duty and leadership, and say leaders eat last. That kind of thing. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, so do you have a success story yet from somebody you've helped?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is the number one ask of the clients that we've worked with in the 3 years and change we've been running this program has been help with financing and funding the startup. It makes sense. Nobody in the military or first responder world has ever been asked to go pay for their deployment, right? Hey, you're going to Afghanistan. You got to come up with $102 million to go to Afghanistan. Like, doesn't exist, right? The taxpayers are already doing that, and there's some functionary at this, Department of Defense war now that's doing the budgeting stuff, right? So not in our thought process. We're going to do a thing. So number one ask is funding. A couple of years ago, we were approached by a local nonprofit called Abundance Capital. It's a venture philanthropy outfit, which is a new concept to me.
Yeah.
Essentially, Charlie mostly solicits charitable contributions, donations to our fund that Abundance Capital manages. And then we have established a review panel, which is a bunch of local, probably 50-50 veterans and non, but all the local successful business people, venture capitalist type people that meet, hear the pitches of our applicants. So my job is not to be a voting member on the panel, but it's to help get the pitching, entities, people seeking funds, ready. Right? Approve them, vet them, get them pitched up, ready to go, and then put them in front of the panel, let them go. And so the panel hears their pitch, asks them their questions, and then makes a decision: are we going to give them what they're asking for, something modified, or we're going to decline and give them a recourse for coming back in 90 days, meet quarterly. So it's taken a couple of years to get up and running, to get some funds, and we've got some funding from Greenville County, the Greenville Local Development Corporation, Truist Bank. We've got some great financial partners. We've got 2 loans out. We've helped 2 local businesses. One is a team of a Marine veteran and an Army veteran that came from North American Rescue with this idea. They quit their jobs basically with this idea to start a medical training business using human remains, which is a pretty touchy, kind of weird business if you ask me. A lot of people are kind of like, cadavers, huh? So, when your number one cost in your business is human remains, that kind of like, you don't hear that every day, right? So I think they made $250,000 in revenue in their first year, totally organically, just out there hustling. They were debt free, and they couldn't get a bank or anybody to lend them any money, so they could scale faster, grow faster, lower their overhead costs, and make their margins bigger. Couldn't get anybody, so it did make sense. And the refrain over and over again was, you just haven't been around long enough. You're 12 to 18 months old. That's just not a good bet for most lenders. So they were our first, and they came and they pitched, and they didn't get the money at the first try. We gave them a list of things to work on, and they came back and pitched 90 days later, and they got $40,000 from our venture fund. Good. So they've got that right now. They're making payments which go back into the fund for the next people to come along to ask for money. So it's kind of evergreen, pays for itself. And then just last week we had another. This is a West Point grad, a guy named Dan Fitzgerald. He came to us a year and a half ago, and it was one of those ideas where I thought, that's great, man. That's a cool idea, but like, that's a pie in the sky out there thing. He wanted to bring paddle tennis to the Upstate, and I never heard of
met
paddle
him.
tennis. You met Dan?
You
Yeah,
sent him to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Dan wanted to bring paddle tennis, and I know paddle tennis is big in Latin America and Europe. It's like a combination of tennis and squash. Got the plexiglass walls. You can play it off the wall, so it's just a very dynamic
Play
sport.
it out of the fence.
You can go out of the fence. Yeah, everybody's seen that clip. It's like, we've seen the pickleball craze.
Yeah.
Paddle's different, but similar.
Yeah.
Racket sport, only doubles, play with a slightly smaller tennis ball with less air, so it's kind of squishy. But so anyway, he's been grinding for the last year and a half. Found a business partner. He's found some investors, and so he's cooking with gas. And he didn't necessarily. One of the defining features of our fund is that it's not the only source of funding for people. We don't want it to be you come to us and you get all the money you need and you don't have to go to outside funding. We want to be a gap filler or a bridge to real kind of established capital.
Right.
And so he's got investors coming down the pipe in the next, let's say, 2 months that he feels pretty good about. But in the meantime, he's already got invoices for gravel and he's putting these pop-up courts up. And so he's got expenses. And so we're helping him.
So he's got his spot.
We got him $25K to basically bridge from here until those investors hit. Where he
Where
can
is
actually,
the spot? The Malden?
I think it's in Malden. I know I can't remember exactly where he's putting it down. I should know that.
I
'cause
talked
it's
to
fresh.
a lady investor at the startup level, but probably beyond this seed money. But she would talk to someone and say, "Okay, I'll invest $500,000 for this amount, but here's how I'm going to give it to you: 100 when you hit these milestones, another 150 when you hit these milestones, and 250 when you hit these.
Yep.
And after that, if we need more money, we go somewhere else." So she was kind of right in that spot between, they're up and running and going for the big money.
Yeah, that's I think there's the institutional investors, they kind of have those thresholds, and like once you've been around for a couple of years, you got a decent base of business, then you can kind of start talking to them.
Yeah.
For almost everybody that I'm talking to, they're pre that. They had either pre-revenue,
Yeah.
just getting started in the last year, looking for growth. And then one of the other big trends that we see with these veteran clients is I say we as veterans, we pride ourselves on being hard workers, right? We're elite worker bees, best way to describe it. But you need structure and guidance to be an elite worker bee, right? You need someone telling you what to do and what work needs done and where and how and all that stuff. And so a lot of veterans get out and they start a business. They don't really want to work for the man. They want to work for themselves. I get it. But they aren't working on the business at all, right? They're a solo handyman or a landscaper, and they're doing all the landscaping and all the handyman stuff, but it's just a treadmill that never stops.
Not sales and marketing
But they got to do sales just enough to get the pipeline filled.
Right.
But the minute they take a day off, they don't get paid, right? And the problem, they'll say two things like simultaneously, I've got more work than I know what to do. I can't meet all the demand that I have out there. I also can't afford to hire someone to meet the additional demand.
That's tough.
And to me, that's the quintessential way where we can come in and help and say, you've got the drive, you've got the know-how. You need to intentionally take time to work on your business regularly, to the point where you're not the doer in your business, right? If you owned a McDonald's franchise and you were in there flipping burgers and dropping fries every night, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You've made a mistake, right? You don't own that franchise, so you can be a fry cook.
Definitely the best businesses or best business people I see have made that jump where they're not operating anything.
That's right.
They have people operating the stuff, and they're there to facilitate them, to help them have everything they need to do the best job they can.
Yep.
And in some cases, I've seen people make piles of money when they back away and they're just the owner.
Yeah.
And nobody even knows who they are.
Yeah. Yep.
And then they can really look big picture.
Then they're strategic. They're growing the business. And that's the analogy. This is a Mike Ungerism. Hey, restless.
There's a dog here.
Restless puppy. The 3 eyes of the entrepreneur, right? What are the 3 eyes you need to be aware of? There's, using that McDonald's franchise again. The burger flipper, right? The worker bee. There's the manager, store manager, and then there's the owner, right?
Owner.
And a lot of people, when you start a business, you're all of the above,
Right.
You're flipping burgers, you're putting out customer fires, you're making sure that everyone's on staff and showing up and they're wearing their uniforms, and then you're also doing the work. And and you're also trying to talk to the bank about the loan to get a second location opened up. And it's just like You
Yeah.
you know the lotto machines with the little ping pong balls
Yeah.
bouncing around. Like that's what your brain looks like when
Right.
you're doing everything. You've got all these million priorities and they're floating around, and you're like, how do I figure out which one to grab and work on right now?
Yeah.
It's hard. So we primarily are trying to get folks to work on their business periodically. So we do meetups. We'll do entrepreneur nights. Just take an hour a week, take an hour a month. Come work on your business. And that little bit sometimes is enough to get them
I like
thinking that way.
I like that. When we were building, we built one business for 20 years, and there was a whole lot of burger flipping. You show up early every day, you work all damn day. I mean, it was a grind. But we got to the point where once a quarter, 4 times a year, we'd go away for a 3-day weekend, the leadership team, and think about what could we become, how would we do that, and just kind of brainstorm that gap between where we are now, where we want to be.
Yep.
And, every single big thing I could point to that got us from where we started to where we ended up came from one of those weekends.
It's intentional. Things don't happen by accident usually, right? Yeah. If you don't write it down, I tell people I've never done anything worthwhile that I didn't write down at some point.
Yeah.
So I think that's so many, me included, we'll just jump into a business and just start doing it. We'll just start working and operating in the business, and it feels good.
Yeah.
If you're in the military, if you're a firefighter or law enforcement, whatever, doing your job is very rewarding, right?
Yeah.
You get paid for it, but the
Right.
job itself is also very rewarding. You can see the impact of what you're doing, and you don't have to seek recognition for what you're doing. You kind of just naturally, the people that matter recognize you for what you're doing, right? Most of the general public doesn't even know. And that's not always true in business for yourself, right? You've got to seek recognition for what you're doing. Otherwise, you're, trees falling in the woods and no one's there to see it kind of thing. And it might not be rewarding to just be constantly working. You might be kind of like burning yourself out because it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the working on the business is where you want to be. But I'm so glad you're doing it. I mean, you're learning a ton. You're helping lots of people. You found me some good people that you've met over there that you sent to me that I work with now. Two of them I work with every day.
Well, that's really cool to hear, and I love when a good introduction works out.
Yeah.
Right? Never want to have the opposite happen. But that's one of the cool things about being in the Roop is that there's such. So when Upstate Warriors, before we moved into the Roop, right? The Roop's a 30,000 square foot former bank headquarters. So it's very nice, well provisioned, very beautiful building.
Yeah.
We made it into our home, so it feels very much like you're going into someone's home where you're familiar and know people. Before that, we had a tenth of that. We had 3,000 square feet of shared office space. There was no room for activities, right? We had a little cramped conference room. It was always double booked. It smelled like the last people's lunch. It was
Where
just
was it?
Caledon Court on Pelham,
Okay, I remember
across from
that.
PTG.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So, there was no room for activities, and we had all these community partners that we did stuff with, and that we were, constantly referring back and forth to, but there was no space for them to be in our home, right? But now that we have all this space, you get all these different. I mean, like we said, we partner with everybody and duplicate nothing. So there's all these different community partners that are doing things with us, and they're coming through the doors, and it's happening in the building. And you walk in, and there'll be 30 sheriffs with their their police working dogs, and they're all just checking the building out and doing for a tour. Or we do a monthly radio show with Bill Freedy. He comes in and he'll interview different programs or veterans, or we get one veteran entrepreneur on there per month to kind of showcase and spotlight what they're doing. I walked in a couple months ago, and it was during the Highland Games, and the Royal Scottish Fusiliers have a partnership with Upstate Warrior Solutions where they come over every year for the Highland Games, and it was 20 Scotsmen in their full dress kilt regalia and bagpipes just walking around the building talking to people. It's just like, it's a very cool place to be because there's so many network nodes that cross through those doors on a daily basis.
And you have a great Christmas party every year.
Yeah, get dressed up like the Grinch.
You have it for the veterans and their children, and you get staff to dress up as like different Christmas characters. And the first time I went, one of the guys dressed up like the Grinch.
Yeah.
He looked pretty cool. Well, the first little girl that walked in started screaming and crying. So I guess live and learn.
Yeah, last year's Christmas party, there was the Grinch and Santa and everything. There was also a bunch of Star Wars characters for some reason.
Yeah, I
like
saw
Kylo
that.
Ren just hanging out in the Christmas party. I was like, cool.
Well, let's talk for just a minute. Give us a summary. I know you started Hound. Gosh, how many years ago?
It would have been, I think, January 1st, 2018 was the official
2018.
conception.
It seems like yesterday, but I do the math. That's like 7 years ago.
Almost 8. Yeah, we're closing
8.
in on 8. Yeah.
And so that was a business to be a distributor or a reseller or agent for the ScanSource telecom and cybersecurity line, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we started broad, right?
Yeah.
We started selling everything that ScanSource offered to everybody on the planet, which,
And anywhere on the planet.
anywhere, anybody,
we
anywhere.
decided, I was coaching Jack up, like, hey, we're going to stick around Greenville, okay? We stay where we know people. And then within a week, I said, I got a hot lead for you.
I had a friend named Stanley who lives in Southern California. His business is mostly Taiwanese.
Taiwanese. So you're having to deal with China Telecom.
We try. I mean, So I had a top secret security clearance in the Navy, right? So I'm very well aware of the level of espionage that goes on in the world. And no joke, genuinely, that deal was espionage.
Really?
We were the customer wanted to circumvent the Great Firewall of China. They had production in Taiwan, and they wanted to communicate internet traffic from Taiwan to Southern California without the snooping eyes of the Communist Party of China, right? So clearly the Chinese Communist Party wants to intercept that traffic and doesn't want that to happen. And so this is probably a 6-month deal. Somewhere along the line, the company hired an IT manager named, let's just call him Robert, from China, right? Chinese national.
Yeah.
And he came to Southern California. I never actually met him in person, but he was really not very involved in any of the planning. He was just there and kind of taking notes on stuff. And once we delivered a solution, a proposal for what we would do, he just went back to China. We never heard from him again.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, this is just very mundane corporate espionage. Like, okay, cool. That was one of those decision points where, like, we need to get out of the international business and just focus on
I mean, I think
stuff.
think about the levels of complexity and the levels of difficulty. It's hard enough to run a good, strong local business for Cloud Hound, but you bring in another language. You bring in, 12,000 miles.
Tried to help a hospital. It was like the hospital system in Costa Rica. It was like 4 major hospitals and about 60 outpatient clinics and dental practices. And they wanted to upfit all of those buildings with improved internet, right? So it was like, this is a big opportunity. This is, it's like working with like Prisma or something. Not quite that big, but for Costa Rica, it's big. Well, you get to okay, now we got to go to the Costa Rican Board of like Commerce page, and there's like a kind of a state sanctioned bribe you have to pay, like in the thousands of dollars to be able to do business in Costa Rica. I'm just like, this isn't worth it. This is not worth the squeeze, especially if you're not necessarily going to win that deal. You might do all that for nothing. Echo, Fubi. So it really was, and again, analogies are how I kind of perceive the world. So Cloud Hound, when we started, was just a nondescript block of wood sitting there, right? And we've, over time, whittled away parts of it. So international business, for example. Telephony, right? I had my first real breakthrough was going to PTG, and they're realizing that they were just calling the carriers like everybody else for their customer. So, you guys can just call me instead. And so they started funneling me business. Their customers needed a phone service. I would go find them a phone provider. Echo, down. Well, what happened was they were sending me all their little squeaky wheel phone customers that made all the noise. And so this business spends $70 a month on internet service or phone service. I get 17% commission on that monthly. So we're talking $8 to $12 a month. I got to spend 20 to 30 hours a month on the phone with these people putting out fires. Right. That math doesn't work out for me very well. It was like I was getting, making license plates in prison type money. And so ditch telephony, ditch the international business, really focus on the upstate. Today we are, I use cyber and fiber as the best way to describe what we deliver. So internet services on the fiber side, we can do everything from fiber, broadband, 4G, 5G, satellite, Starlink is an option. So helping people find the right solutions for connectivity regardless of carrier, right? And then on the cyber side, anything from proactive training on the cybersecurity awareness to putting kind of big beefy systems in place to prevent intrusion. You don't want to get ransomware if you're a manufacturer, so helping avoid that ransomware outcome, putting a plan in place for if you do get ransomware, what are you going to do about it, right? Most people don't have a plan until something happens and they're reacting, trying to make it up behind the 8 ball. And then incident response, right? So if something does happen, we can bring in the cavalry to kind of get you back to up and running and operating smoothly. So
Yeah. And don't you do some like in-person stuff too, where you actually train people?
yeah, so most of what we do is a scan source, leaning on that scan source vendor network to provide these services. The one exception to that is a couple of years ago, I had a customer ask me for in-person training on social engineering. They were having a big problem with their people clicking on phishing emails, and they were doing regular online security awareness training. I think that I did once a year to kind of check the box. But then the union, this was a steel manufacturer, the steel union, steelworkers union, is like, you can't fire people if they've only had online training. They have to have in-person training if you want to fire them for this cause.
Okay.
And so they're like, hey, can you come in and do in-person training on social engineering and phishing emails? And I was like, sure. So I created a course called Social Engineering Self-Defense 101. So it's very entry level. It's non-technical. It's for everybody at the company, from the CEO down to the janitor, anybody with access to internet or IT spaces or anything like that. And it's really talking about, divide cybercrime into two different buckets, right? There's the technical stuff where people are using software and hacking expertise to break through your system, right? That's what hacking, what you think of it when you think about hacking. Most of what's happening isn't that, though. Most of it is just, it's the tales all this time. It's someone tricking you, duping you using psychological tactics, emotional levers to do something that you wouldn't normally do.
It's not
right?
it's not the Russian hacker.
It could be. And the thing is, the Russian hacker, they have technical exploits and very good ones. But part of that is like the easy button. It's like water. Water is always going to find the path of least resistance, and so are the hackers. And most of the time, the path of least resistance is not through your technology. It's through your people. People are gullible. We're trickable. We have emotions that are manipulatable. And so, I tell everybody, if you think you're invulnerable to hacking, it makes you more at risk, because you don't think that you're capable of being hacked. I guarantee you, give me, an hour with anybody, and I'll tell you what your levers are, right? Do you have kids? Okay, you just got an email from your kid's middle school. There's been a school shooting. Here's the PDF for the roster and the recall information, and figure out which kids went to the hospital, and here's the casualty report. Like, you're not thinking with your higher faculties anymore. Your lizard brain is taken over, and you're worried about the safety of your children. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking about, this could be a hacker, or I shouldn't click on this, or do I trust the domain, or anything like that. You're complete shambles. Same thing. I mean, I got popped a couple of years ago because one of my prospects, the CEO of a company that I've been calling on for a couple of years, Jim, what's the company's name? Whatever. New South Construction Supply. Yeah. So I got an email from his actual email to Jim, CEO at newsouthconstruction.com. Say, hey, Jack, here's an RFP, request for proposal, for your perusal. Attachment. Great. And Jim finally came around to give me a shot at some business. This is great. I never won this business with Jim. Clicked on it. It was a blank PDF. And immediately I was like, I didn't think about it. And there's a couple of key red flags there. One, I wasn't expecting it, right? There was no prior conversation with Jim about an RFP. Yeah. Two, this is a small privately owned company that doesn't do RFPs. Right, right. I've bid on stuff. I've never done an RFP with them. I've never talked about an RFP.
Unclick.
And three, Jim's a good old boy from South Carolina. He's never used the word perusal in his life.
Right.
It was not common language based on what I knew about Jim. Right. And so his email actually had been hacked. Yeah. That was a case where he got hacked, and the attacker was using his email to send out phishing emails, which is a little more of an enhanced attack than a random spray and pray, but. Nonetheless, my salesperson greed got the better of me, right? Yeah. So everyone's got that little lever. Or just sometimes, not even greed,
sometimes I think it's just you just want to check something off the list. So, you're just trying to.
One of the most interesting things, and we'll close the loop on the phishing thing here, but for a long time we would sell hook security. Mm-hmm. So a phishing awareness training as a service. Yeah. And they're putting fake phishing emails in your inbox every month, and they can track what you do with that email on a granular level. And so we'd get the report every month from our clients individually. So if they've got 65 email users, here's every user and what they did with this email. And the typical failure looked like most, 90% of people get the email, click it, delete it, click it, report it, whatever. They're not opening the attachment. They're not failing. Yeah. But the people that are failing almost always look the same way. They would open it on their work laptop, sit there for 2 minutes, look at it, move on to something else. And come back to it a couple hours later, look at it for a couple minutes, and then move on to something else. Do that 3 or 4 times, and then go home that night, and on their iPhone, they'd open it up again and then click on it. Like, it was never just a one and open click.
They were thinking about it.
You're a fisherman, right? You know how fish bite, right? Yeah. You don't just get a hit on the first cast.
Right,
Usually,
and
you
they're
got there and you're just teasing them,
Yeah.
and they're coming up and they're looking and they're swimming away and they're looking again, maybe take a little nibble and then swim away, and they come back and bite you later, right? So it's this space where people don't know what to do. Like, I'm not sure what to make of this lure. I think it's fishy. It's clearly not food, but it could be. I'll just file this away for later. Kind of procrastinate.
If
a
it
little bit.
says RFP or $100 free Amazon gift card, you're like, well, let's check it real quick.
Yeah, what's
Could
the
be,
harm,
you know?
right? Employee of the month. That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be. It's my turn.
Yeah, about damn time they recognize my greatness.
I need a raise too. So that business is 6 years old now, 7 years old.
Pushing 8,
Yeah. I think you've done great with it. You've really helped some great local customers. Nothing in China or Costa Rica, but I think it's good. Like, I've watched you with the local customers because you can go meet them. You can go check them out on the weekend if you have to. Take care of them. You know, it's not just to sell them and walk away. I mean,
No.
you have a long-term relationship.
And that's really I think one of the big values, and it only happens with time.
Yeah.
Is that the average tenure of a direct salesperson at any tech company is 18 months, right? They're there, they make their number. Either they're doing great and they get hired to go somewhere else, or they get promoted internally, or they aren't doing great and they get fired. Right. So if you've got a salesperson you like from, say, AT&T or from your cybersecurity vendor of choice, they're not going to be there in 2 years.
It's going to go away.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you kind of got to find a new relationship. And is this even the vendor? And this guy works for AT&T, so he's not going to tell me anything besides buy AT&T, right? Even if he's a great guy. And so with CloudHound, I'm not leaving Greenville anytime soon, right? We keep doing this.
That's good.
And so if we met 8 years ago, did some stuff to help you, or even just met and didn't do anything, there's that consistency over time, whereas I'm going to outlast all those direct salespeople.
Sure.
10 times out of 10.
Every one of them, yeah.
And so it's also like I'm independent and I'm not driven by any agenda or quota or particular product or service that I got to sell this month. So I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
Period. Right? There's really nothing else to it. So I've got people that have kind of learned that value over time, and it's not something that happens overnight. You don't just gain trust with someone on a first meeting.
Yeah.
So there's folks that got some good trust and rapport with now, and
Okay.
doing some good stuff.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a couple of quick hitters, and then we can wrap her up for this episode.
Till next time.
Till next
Number
time.
5.
So give me your favorite all-time book.
I'm going to say Tribe by Sebastian Junger.
Tribe, yeah.
It's one of the most impactful books that I've read, and it's one of the ones that I recommend. I don't really recommend books to people that often, but Tribe is one that it's a war correspondent named Sebastian Junger. He spent 18 months with it, embedded with a Marine unit in Afghanistan. Just got one of the worst. 50% casualty rate over 18 months. These dudes got real messed up in Afghanistan. Came back to the United States and just matriculated back into society as they got out. And so he kept up with them and just kind of collected all of his thoughts and reflections on that experience. And it takes the idea that the veteran coming back from combat is broken and needs us to help them, assimilate into society, and flips it on its head. It says that society is broken, right? We're living these individualistic, materialistic lifestyles that are not really connected to any other humans that deeply. And that's really the opposite of how our species has lived most of its existence, right?
Yeah.
For most of human history, we lived in these small, interdependent, flat tribes where the existence of the tribe and the group and the survival of the group was it. There was no sense of self. There wasn't an individual component to that. Interestingly, he points to the proliferation of mirrors as something that kind of destroyed that. We see ourselves in the mirror and we kind of become self-obsessed. And before that, it was just there is only the tribe, right? Yeah. And so the military, especially in a small combat unit, SEAL team, Ranger, Green Beret, whatever, Marine platoon, like that's it. That's the nature of business. You are meaningless. You're worthless without your team, right? Your priority, it's like, team gear, personal gear, self, right? Your gear is more important than you, right? So you come out and it's like everybody you see is like running up the scoreboard, just trying to make their bank account bigger. And that is antithetical to team. There's a pejorative in the SEAL teams. I got mine. Like if you come back from a training mission or overseas operation and you go take a shower and get dinner while everyone else is still cleaning all the team gear, you're a turd. I got mine, Jack. You over there getting yours. Like that's a negative thing in the civilian world, and everybody else is like that's what you do, right? And so Tribe really flips it and says that you're not the broken, combat fatigued veteran that needs help from everybody. It's like something that most people don't.
Yeah.
It's that there's this way of living where you're living for others, and it feels so much better than just showing up every day and trying to make your own bank account grow, right?
Well,
And
everyone should read that book.
yep. If you want a second one,
Yeah, sure.
For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Ooh, it's an old one.
Great book. I read that recently with the book club that I'm in, and it's for every young man, every little boy that kind of dreams of going to war, it's kind of a very romantic version of, he walks into the jungle of South America with a backpack full of explosives and a machine gun. He goes to look for the rebels to link up and sow some mayhem. It's just a fun read.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you for coming back today. You are in the lead. I think Marty is gunning for you because he likes to come by.
Bring it on, Marty.
Bring it on. Maybe we can have a panel.
Ooh.
An all-star panel.
A pot off.
A pot off. Yeah. But you're doing great with the work with the veterans. It's wonderful. I'm sure that's a fulfilling thing. It's not just the work or the paycheck for sure. It's fulfilling. And then you got your own business, and it's nice that you're continuing to give back to others.
Can't help it.
You must have been raised well.
Raised very well, I think. Contribute to those parents for sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Echo, you ready? Say hi.
Okay.